Wife humiliated me at family dinner, so I ended the marriage with divorce papers in front of her. Wife mocked me in front of everyone at a family dinner, so I served her divorce papers, ruining her life and everyone else's too. I, 43 male, try to do my best to provide for my wife, 38 female, and 2 kids, 35, as well as my mother-in-law, and would like to think I am doing a decent job. Over the years, I worked to improve our family's living situation. Not only did I complete another bachelor's and recently a master's in a STEM-related degree, I, at the same time, worked 2 full-time jobs while completing my second bachelor's and put my wife through school as well. She completed a degree where she could make good money, about $60,000 to $70,000 per year, in a healthcare field that always has jobs available. But with the birth of our 2 kids, she has since given up on her career to be a stay-at-home mom for the time being. At first, it was a struggle while I was finishing up my master's. Once I completed it, after our youngest turned 3, my career took a jump up, and we are now able to afford our single-income household in a more feasible manner. We're far from rich but do okay for a single-income family of 4, a little north of $150,000 base plus bonuses. The past year, life was overwhelming per my wife, so even though I now work 75% from home, I budgeted to hire a daytime nanny to help her around the house with 1 child while the other is in school. Now, my day starts every day around 5:30 to 6 a.m. I get the house ready for the day before the nanny comes at 8 a.m. I get our oldest up and ready for school, breakfast made, and plan out my day. I bring our oldest to drop off and am home in time to let the nanny in. My most recent task at work has me grounded for the next 2 months, meaning I am now 100% WFH. While this is nice, I am busy in meetings all day as my role manages teams on a global scale, as I oversee projects from my industry. For the past 1.5 months, I realized my wife, as much as she says her life is stressful at home, starts her day at 10 a.m. I asked my ML and nanny if this was always the case after a week or so of WFH, and they both responded, more or less, sometimes earlier, sometimes later. My wife literally wakes up, cooks, and then scrolls through her phone or shops from home, which brings me to my gripe. I am glad I am able to provide her that sort of life since we both grew up lacking in means. I get the possibility of postpartum depression, the stress of having kids, the feeling of being unfulfilled, the fact that I probably am a crappy husband, but, for what it's worth, everything is taken care of and then some. I manage the house's finances. She claims she was too busy to do so. I pay all the household bills. I pay my own personal bills. I pay her bills, track, and perform all the upkeep of our house, appliances, cars, pets, etc., and I also help pay for my MIL's medical bills and car note. But apparently, my life is on easy street compared to hers. I can't decompress to her because it seems like she always feels the need to one-up me. I had a bad day, but she had it worse because, I'm lucky I got to go away and work. My feet hurt from walking all day during work travel, which is nothing compared to her standing and cooking with a child clinging to her. For the past 2 or so years, I've been told I ruined her life, her opportunities, etc., but when I remind her of what she says, she denies and dodges accountability. My mother-in-law has pulled me aside and stated she's noticed a change in both myself and my wife. I have a greater attachment to my kids and, hell, I've hugged the dogs and talked to them more about my life than to my wife. I honestly feel like I am in emotional survival mode as I'm 1 step from moving up the career ladder and 1 step away from finding love and comfort from the bottom of a whiskey bottle. I'm sure I'll be hearing from the manly men of Reddit about how I'm simping, but I'm not a machine. I just want to know and feel that someone I prioritize, aside from my kids, appreciates and loves me for what I do. And sure, I'll hear from the stay-at-home moms of Reddit, which is fine. I grew up in a single-parent mother household. It's not easy. Honestly, with the help of her mother and a nanny, Monday to Friday, for 1 toddler while another child is at school, can you honestly tell me she's having the typical stay-at-home mom experience? Because neither my friends nor colleagues who are single parents can. As I'm sure the masses of holier-than-thou Redditors will consider this a poorly written fanfic, it is what it is. TLDR, long story short, it feels as if my wife has checked out of our marriage. We're only roommates, where she can still reap the marriage benefits. I'm not asking for her to throw herself at me all the time and let me do whatever I want. I really just want to be told I'm doing good and for her to offer me some form of emotional comfort, as simple as a hug. But I guess, as the man who ruined her life, I deserve it. To add more context, I've never cheated. I do work in an industry that has a large female population, but I'm literally an open book with work, names, colleagues, and staff under me. She has access to my work agendas and correspondence if she really wanted to snoop. But on that note, she still doesn't know what exactly I do for a living at this time. We, as a whole family, her parents and mine, have tried to get her to go to therapy, but she refuses or skirts around the issue. Aside from my coming from a single mother household, where my biological dad was present in my life, she has had both parents in a reportedly monogamous marriage for over 40 years. I have tried to talk to her about everything, including my own feelings, but again, one-upmanship tends to be the trend here. 5. What am I getting out of the marriage now? Aside from my 2 beautiful kids, I've been asking myself that same question. We have a near non-existent sex life, mainly since last year. I always figured maybe it's part of depression or whatever she may be going through. Maybe I'm just not attractive enough or just horrible in bed because of my health conditions. I'm not some supermodel husband, but temptation and opportunity do knock, and I can perform still. But I never give in because, as cliché as it sounds, I honestly do love my wife and want to only be with her. I'll give credit where credit is due, as I don't want to sound biased. When I say she wakes up and cooks, she cooks for everyone in the house. Myself, the kids, Mael, and even the nanny. Aside from breakfast, she cooks all meals and snacks. I typically fast until lunchtime, and our oldest tends to eat a small, simple breakfast in case they don't like what school serves that morning. She does load both the kids and her laundry but seldom folds and puts them away. I typically do my own, and the rest of my clothes I dry clean because they're work clothes. She does keep track of our pantry and fridge, but after she makes the list, I'm the one who goes out and buys everything, if not delivered. She does clean our bathrooms and house 50% of the time. The other 50% is done by either Mil or myself, or sometimes the nanny if she feels like being extra helpful. 7. Prior to hiring the nanny, my mother-in-law was the main help for my wife, up until she had unexpected medical needs. So, I opted to hire a nanny to help them both, more so when Mil is having treatments and recovering. Update, 6th May 2024. Not sure if anyone would read this, but thank you to those who have reached out and chit-chatted. While I know I've kept my newfound friends here updated, I figured I'd just update my post and keep it short. I showed my wife this post the following weekend, and she read it along with all the comments. Long story short, we had an argument. She left our house to stay with her sister, and I've been a single parent since. It's sad to say that, aside from the good nights to our kids, it's all pretty much the same routine. Nothing much else to say other than thank you for all the kind words of encouragement. Just need to add that this post got bigger than I expected from a venting post, but I've responded to a few comments nonetheless. Thank you for the comments and DMs and, more so, for the offers to let me ruin your life, huh? It's been the highlight of my day and night as I sit here drinking with my dog while everyone else is asleep. It feels depressingly sad that I feel I have to turn to random internet strangers for some sort of validation in my rant. My apologies in advance as I try to keep this as vague as possible. Update. I just wanted to update those who have been kind enough to check up via DM and comments. Apologies in advance for the lengthy post. It's a bit of irony and coincidence that I made a follow-up from the update on the 6th of May 2024, during Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. But I could really use another outlet outside of my therapist. My apologies if this isn't the storybook ending or destruction of a relationship people were hoping for. To save you a read, wife left, came back like nothing happened, made it about her and nothing's changed. I'm continuing to suffer mentally, knowing nothing will change, while trying to keep it together for our kids. Lots of takeout. The day after she packed up and left, my wife attempted to come back and take the kids with her to her sister's. Naturally, I was against this, and thankfully, so was her whole family, including said sister. Not only was it not fair to our kids for her to sweep them away into a home that's not theirs, but it would also put financial and housing stress on the rest of her family since she doesn't work. Her sister and her family, husband and 3 kids, stay with their dad in the house they grew up in. After a little over a week of being away, I guess she cooled off, so she decided it would be fine if she walked in the door with her bags as if she just came back from Target. She came into my office while I was working and angrily stared at me while I sat on a conference call meeting with my team. I couldn't just jump off, as this is a busy time of the quarter for us. I guess it didn't sit well with her, because once I took off my headset and closed my laptop, she started yelling at me about how much I really don't care about her and her well-being overall. At that moment, I couldn't do anything more than look at her and just shake my head. Neil came in after hearing my wife yelling and pulled her away, telling her not to bother me, while our nanny kept our youngest away from it all on the other side of the house. That night, after the kids were put to bed, I sat in my office by myself with a drink, as I have been doing for the past nights. My wife came in, and we talked, we argued, we cried, and we drank. One thing led to another, and we ended up in bed. I wish I could say that was our making up, but the next sobering morning, as we laid there, she went on about how hard it was for her the time she was gone. Literally, It was about her struggle staying at her family's house in her old room with her dad and sister's family. How lucky I am to be able to stay here and do this and that, buy this or do that, and not stress as much as they did. How easy my life is compared to hers. Even though we had similar upbringings, my mind and heart broke that morning. I've been spiraling down since then. This last week, I made another attempt to reconcile and talk things out, but I was met with a shouting match while trying to express my current stress and anxieties with life and work in general. Wife. Well, do you know how hard this is all for me? You're supposed to help me be happy. Me. So, when it comes to my happiness, stress, needs, and overall well-being, fucks me, right? Get over it. Wife. We all have our own problems. You need to figure it out and get over them. I don't know who the woman I am at home with is, but that wasn't the woman I married, vowed to spend my life with, and raise our kids together. Since that conversation, I've been noticeably distant with her. I've been sleeping in my office, on the couch, or with my kids in their beds after putting them to sleep. Still, nothing changes. She continues starting her day at 10 a.m., sitting on her phone, talking to her mom groups, cooking meals, and relying on both Mill and the nanny for childcare. Nothing has changed, and I doubt anything will. Sadly, I think even if we got a divorce, nothing would feel different anyway. During my wife's absence, the days seemed like any other day, except with a little more takeout than usual. My main fear isn't just losing my wife, I fear I'd lose my kids in the process. So, I guess it's sad to say the grand finale to my story is like that of a lot of men and some women I've talked to here. I'll just continue to smile and suffer in silence. First off, thank you for all the comments and DMs. Some context and clarification. Since, admittedly, my post was emotionally charged, I typed it up after another argument. After the birth of our kids, the pediatrician's office gave my wife postpartum depression screening forms. During the time of both children, she scored pretty high and was suggested to see a therapist. With our second child, she scored significantly higher, and I should say I, made an effort to get her the help she needs. She refused. So, I brought my mother-in-law and the nanny in for support. I know what people will say or think, but this is one of the reasons I am not 100% ready to just give up and file our life together away. I also know that silently suffering in the near and long run won't add to a healthy atmosphere for our kids. But neither would a bitter and hate-filled divorce. I know some have compared divorce to ripping off a band-aid, saying, it'll hurt at first, but that pain goes away. I'd rather try to spare my kids from thinking their parents ended up hating each other because of them, or something along those lines. I've told a few people I've talked to via DM since my last post. A little more insight on my personal life. Prior to my promotion I was a PM managing teams and budgets, so out of habit I planned for a lot of what-ifs. That being said, I've planned for contingencies in case things go south. So yes, I've talked to lawyers, 3, actually. I know our rights, what each of us is entitled to, and I have a draft settlement created and on hold until I feel I need to use it. I know what I want, and I'm willing to offer more than what's fair for our kids' well-being. I also have a plan in case we end up going to court. It's 100% on me that I'm suffering in silence, but I'm too stubborn to just give up. So, while I'm venting, I don't expect anyone to feel sorry for me. I endure this to keep the norm our kids know, ensure MIL's treatments go uninterrupted, and, of course, hold out hope that my wife will finally be open to giving therapy a shot so we can climb together to a better place. Update. First and foremost, TLDR, I'm done. Wife said I don't do anything and I'm not crap, in front of the therapist and family at Father's Day dinner. She got served? She's mad. She's trying to act perfect, and I'm just waiting while taking care of my family, my kids, my mom, and Mill. Oh well, I'll just ruin everyone else's life too in my family. Secondly, to clear some confusion, I did not get 2 bachelors and a master's while working 2 jobs at the same time, as some readers are assuming. Bachelor's number 1, graduated in the early 2000s. Bachelor's number 2, completed via online classes, 2 classes per semester, while working 2 full-time jobs. Job number 1, hospital, 36 to 48 schedule. Job number 2, big box store, 32 to 40 hours spread across 7 days a week. This was to pay for both my and my wife's tuition because she decided to go back to school before we had kids. After graduating from bachelor's number 2 and entering the industry I am in now, I was able to work 1 job and pursue my master's. So, no, I did not get 3 degrees at the same time or in close succession. And I am surprised that I actually have to spell this out as someone working 2 jobs, while going to school isn't that uncommon, or at least that's what I thought. My wife chooses not to work. She technically has a job, but she barely works it, to the point where we forget she has one. For example, she worked one day, 4 or 5 months ago, for 8 hours on a Tuesday. That's how seldom she works. Her manager is really supportive of the Flex PRN model and provides her with a list of days they need coverage. She can choose to pick up a shift or not. While she can work more, she only does enough to maintain her license. She complains to our family about her career being on hold for one reason or another, though she has every opportunity to work more if she chooses. All things considered, she has an available and supportive circle around her, regardless of the decision she makes about her career, whether it's from our family, her job, or myself. I have made multiple offers and taken many steps to open that door for her to go back to work. For example, hiring the nanny, moving in to help, my WFH setup, and her flexible schedule. Yet here we are. I am, and have been, in therapy for myself. Beyond the issues at home, my work can be very debilitating in regard to my mental health and, at times, physical health. Since I can't find the support I need mentally or physically at home with my wife, I opted to attend therapy rather than find comfort with someone outside of the home or at the bottom of a bottle. I've tried to express this to my wife, and, as mentioned in my previous post, she has a habit of one-upping me, and here we are. My in-laws are still married. Given the circumstances at home, my mother-in-law moved in to help out my wife while my sister-in-law and her family moved back into their parents' house for their own reasons. Sil and her family are trying to save money while getting back on their feet. Meanwhile, Mael's presence benefits my wife and me. We can also keep a closer eye on Mil while she undergoes bi-monthly treatments. My wife, via screening questionnaires, is highly suspected of having PPD. She also has a history of symptomatic OCD, ADHD, and other ailments she's refused to get evaluated for, or she refuses to accept the result given. I knew what I was getting into, and I loved and accepted my wife for her flaws, as she did mine at the time. Spare me the "I don't feel sorry for you," or pity comments. I'm like every other man who fell in love and wanted to give my person the best of me and the world I could offer. But again, here we are. There are a lot of manly men and Red Pill Nation guys out there complaining, saying I'm simping over my wife. While I respect your opinions and perspectives, I will outright say this. If this situation were only affecting my life, I would have left a long time ago. As one Redditor commented in a past thread, something that stuck with me. You're the kind of person who would take a bullet for his kids. Maybe it's in a different context than intended, but to protect my children from any harm, physical or mental, I'll take the proverbial bullet if and when needed. I'd like to think other dads out there would do the same. That's why I've endured as much as I have, for the time being. I would rather my wife use me as an outlet for her problems than take it out on our kids. Thank you to all the comments and messages. I've met many strangers who've become great Reddit pen pals and some who have been in the know every step of the way, progressing to this point. I am surprised at how far this has gone, from other subreddits to other platforms and even YouTube. Whether you love me, hate me, or think this is all fake, no matter where you stand, thank you for the constructive comments and DMs to check in. The kids and myself will be alright, moving forward. Now for the update. The end of an era. This will be shorter than some expected, as there's really not much to say, but I'll address some of the questions people may have had and provide the satisfaction of the "I told you so" moment for Reddit. After a hard push from our family via an intervention, my wife and I finally attempted to go to marriage counseling. I'm sure many of you can guess how well that went. Blame, tears, regrets, gaslighting, with a side of "I'm the reason for her life being ruined." All aired in front of a licensed therapist instead of Reddit or her mom groups. In the end, everything the therapist suggested and noted went over her head and was ignored because it went against the grain of her status quo. One thing worth mentioning was when the therapist asked her to recall when she last truly felt happy. Her response was, about 12 or so years ago. Please note, 12 years ago, she was still in her 20s, childless, living with her ex, a vastly different time and position in life. I know it's petty of me, but I guess if that's when she was last happy, it wouldn't be that far of a stretch for her to find that happiness again, since her ex is still in the same apartment, job, and place in life that he was 12 years ago. Which is fine, if that's how she wants to live life. I try not to judge, but in my 40s with kids, going clubbing 3 to 4 days a week isn't my jam anymore, and I don't want my kids around a mom and company who drown themselves in White Claws. To add, I know some will ask. I know and can confirm that she hasn't physically cheated on me, but I can't confirm if she has emotionally, if that's the right term. After that therapy session, I checked her phone records and didn't see anything out of the ordinary, but I also didn't bother to check apps like Instagram or Snapchat. I know I'm probably boring, but shout out to all the Costco dads whose Sunday fun day includes making rounds with the kids for samples. The following weekend was Father's Day. This year, as expected, it wasn't a big celebration, just like it isn't for many dads out there. Our family got together to celebrate with a BBQ and some simple family time. My wife treated it like any other day, slept in, got up, cooked, shopped on her phone, attempted to play with the kids, and returned to her phone. During the family BBQ, my wife said she felt ill, so she sat around most of the day while the rest of the family made the experience enjoyable. When everything was set up and the family all sat at the table, her parents, her sister's family, my mother, and our kids, it was a great spread. Nothing extravagant, but just a great meal for everyone. I was talking with my brother-in-law about our kids' school Father's Day activities, and I assume my wife overheard when I mentioned that it was a little sad to see some kids sitting alone without their fathers during the Breakfast with Dad event I attended. She blurted out with a laugh, loud enough for the whole room to hear, "It's not like you do anything anyway." I could have gone instead. At that moment, I was red-faced and at a loss for words, sitting there processing what she said in my head, while the dining room went dead silent. My MIL broke the awkwardness, responding, "Well, maybe if you feel that way, one of you should divorce the other." My wife looked at my mother-in-law, confused that she would say such a thing, and laughed mockingly in my direction. Then, with her hand pointing at me, she said, "As if another woman would want a man like him. Just look at you." The room sat silent. I was angry, heartbroken, confused, and embarrassed, all at the same time. In typical manly man fashion, I just nodded my head in silence, stood up, grabbed my keys, and drove off to get a drink, ignoring the cries of the rest of the family and our kids telling me to stay. I don't know what was said or done while I was out of the house for the rest of Sunday, because I couldn't bring myself to check our house cameras. But when I returned early Monday morning, the house had a completely different feel. As usual, I woke up around 6 a.m., got the house and our oldest ready for school drop-off, checked emails, and responded to messages. Nothing out of the ordinary. As I was getting dressed to leave, I looked over at my wife, lying in bed snoring lightly. All I could do was look at her and think about what we had, and what we've now lost. I've decided, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I texted my lawyer that morning to move forward with serving her. Fast forward to last week, she was served at our home. Reminder to people, I had no choice but to be there because I work from home. She had what I guess you could call a mini meltdown. She stormed into my office screaming, "How could you do this to me?" Her mother intervened, which was met with her saying I had supposedly turned her whole family against her. But I digress. I probably would have felt bad if it wasn't immediately followed by the rest of her week acting as if she's been this active and attentive wife and mother the past few years. Sure, people can say she's making an attempt, but she's made many attempts, and historically, we fall back to where we've been. For those curious, I am aiming for full or at least majority custody of our kids. I already, and will continue to cover all the expenses for our kids, insurance, tuition, both of our kids will be attending private schools come fall, medical bills, etc. My mother-in-law has given me the courage and strength that helps supplement my own mother's support throughout this. Basically, she is what I hoped the kind of mother and wife my wife would have been to our kids and me. Out of respect for my mother-in-law, as well as per my own mother's shared wishes, I will continue to help oversee and contribute financial help if needed during her treatments. While some may feel I should cut their whole family off, I know the hardships pushed onto a family while dealing with cancer and have dealt with it firsthand as a family, 2303, member and care provider on both sides of the desk. All in all, I'm prepared to go to war if needed, but I just want a clean, no-fuss divorce. My wife has no alimony coming, so sorry for the Redditors and mommy gang Facebook group saying she needs to divorce me first and get that sweet, sweet alimony money. We live in a state that does not typically enforce alimony. She has the means of gainful employment immediately. To help curb any possible problems, I will cover her insurance and bills until either the divorce is finalized or when she gains full employment. So, that's that. I'm done and waiting for the steps to be taken for everything to be finalized. Sorry it wasn't as exciting of a story with plot twists as some may have hoped for, but that's life. Not sure I'll update this once it's all finalized, which probably won't be for a few more months, depending on if we go to war or not.